It's the 25th of the 1st, 2020. Um, this upload is with regard to the ongoing issue of hate crime that I'm experiencing and what it's involved. And basically, I've mentioned in all my uploads that the vendetta that I've experienced has included harassment. It's included inviolability of my dwellings. It's included theft of my belongings, and it's included a lot more serious offences and wrongdoings um, that disrespect the Constitution of the Republic of Ireland. As I've also said in previous uploads, I've not received any supports or services or advocacy. I have received intrusions from strangers, anonymous, and individuals of mental health professions. So just to discern the difference between offences against the state and mental health issues, it's pretty clear what offences against the state are when it involves wrongdoings against, a person's rights. So this has been going on since 2005, 2006, even before then, but really more so now in the past 2 years, and especially since I got married and gave birth in 2015. So the guards, authorities, are the first port of call when it comes to circumstances of harassment and hate crime. So prior to being in this predicament of being a HAPS tenant, due to issues with harassment in my marital home, etc., that I did not receive supports for, nor did I receive advocacy with regard to the other wrongdoings that I experienced. So these are legal violations as well that are included in all this, as I've mentioned. But on www.garda.ie, there's a lovely page describing what hate crime is. It's a unique criminal offence which is perceived by the victim or any other person to, in whole or in part, be motivated by hostility or prejudice based on actual or perceived age, disability, race, colour, nationality, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, or gender. So, as a victim, I've already explained how my experience has been perceived and has been related to the relevant ombudsman. That has not been acknowledged by the ombudsman for the government, and I'm wondering, 2 years on, why this is the case. Hate incidents is also mentioned as being non-crime. Any non-crime incident which is perceived by any person to, in whole or in part, be motivated by hostility or prejudice based on actual or perceived age, disability, etc., etc. Person, community, or institution may be a victim of hate crime by virtue of perceived or actual association with a particular group or background. Motivation is presumed by a demonstration or expression of hostility or prejudice. Ethnicity includes traveller and Roma. Religion includes non-believers, and gender includes gender identity, transgender, intersex, gender expression, and gender exploration. An incident is an occurrence reported to on Garda Síochána. The incidents I've experienced, the final point, have been reported to GSOC and local authorities, and I'm still in the predicament that I'm in without support services or advocacy. I've contacted politicians, local and national, and civil liberty agencies, and still I haven't received any support services or advocacy. This being in part due to the obstruction of justice and also the violations of privacy that I've experienced with people interfering and intercepting with my correspondences and the assistance that I have sought. So the motivation has been obvious. Basically, it's like a competition, a popularity campaign amongst certain citizens trying to gain acclaim for their newfound selves and their newfound positions and status in society. That has involved very serious offences and discrimination and very serious defamation. So, the examples of hate crime include verbal abuse, obscene offensive calls, text, mail or emails, assault, harassment, criminal damage, arson, manslaughter and murder. Out of those, I've experienced about 4 or 5. The issue, particularly with regard to the harassment and the assault and the criminal damage, are the most serious incidents that haven't been rectified either, all included in my correspondence to GSOP. So it also gives a little bit of information about how to report any issues of hate crime. And there is a sentence here that says there are 200 ethnic liaison gardaí appointed who are trained to deal with such type of crime and will assist you in the course of the investigation if you so wish. You can request the services of your local appointed Garda ethnic liaison officer at any stage of the investigation. As a sexual assault victim between 2004 and 2005, and as a victim of revenge porn, there wasn't any investigation. As a victim again, over a decade later, of domestic violence and harassment and hate crime, and the other more serious offences with regards to medical care and financial abuse and obstructions of justice, etc., there has been no ethnic liaison officer appointed, and there has been no investigation pursued regarding what my experiences have been, simply due to power players campaigning based on popularity and basically causing worse offences. So that's the page on hate crime on the Garda website, and the contact is diversity@garda.ie. Now, as I've mentioned, GSOC have been informed of my experiences. I've not received any support services or advocacy. Local authorities are also aware of the situation, and this is going back between 2004 to 2007, first with revenge porn and sexual assault, and now again with constitutional wrongdoings and whatnot, and defamation yet again. So this is a sad sign of the times, as I'm saying, and hate crime for any victim of sexual assault from over a decade ago and revenge porn is very serious for any authorities to, for women and children, it's a serious position to be in 2020, a democracy, progressive Ireland, evolved, respectable Ireland, you know, intelligent people, professionals, just thinking that a vendetta of hate crime perpetrated and orchestrated and premeditated by a collective group of people that have as I've already stated, systematically decided to just trample on a woman's marital rights, constitutional rights, legal rights, medical rights, etc., etc. So that's the incident of hate crime, yet again explained, um, and how basically on the Garda website page, the incidents of harassment and damage to my property and trespassing have not been acknowledged amongst the other wrongdoings that I've experienced. Um, what other aspect of this that I find quite offensive is not only the obstruction of justice and people intruding in my legal affairs and my private affairs and my marriage and family life, um, not only those aspects, but also individuals that are persistent to continue perpetuating this problem. Um, as I've said, in 2006, I started on my road to recovery, um, self development and addiction studies and research and whatnot. And that work continued for nearly 12 or 13 years. And I helped many, many, many people along the way. And to be in this predicament, um, not particularly so much vulnerable, but absolutely disgusted that for the assistance that I have provided to people in difficult circumstances to be disrespected like this as a law abiding citizen and to have been so seriously defamed and to have had so much stolen from me, and to have people had been in my dwellings, inviolability of my dwellings, um, you know, all of that is very, they're offences as well. And I'm just wondering, um, how is it that the ombudsman haven't addressed these issues? And I'd like to know who is preventing this matter from being resolved in a mature, amicable, and respectful manner. Um, so this is what hate crime involves. It's a repetitive issue, but it's an ongoing issue. And as I've said, I've had experience of theft of my belongings and people just saying what they want, making the most outrageous claims without any knowledge of what they're talking about. And the issue of information that's being withheld, that I'm entitled to be informed of, and that I'm entitled to be consulted about, are other serious aspects of this. And people accessing information unethically um, is also another matter about all of this situation. Um, so, as I've said, my road to recovery was over a decade ago, and my work didn't negatively affect people at all. I helped many, many people along the way and did so voluntarily and did so authentically without looking for anything or without expecting anything. And this issue is very serious from many perspectives, not only from the perspective of the legalities of the issues surrounding my rights and entitlements, but also with regard to my legal rights and also with regard to my rights to privacy and my rights to information. As I've said in a previous upload, there's information that has been accessed, my private information, my private records, even my records, my educational transcripts, my educational experience, but also more personal information, my ancestry records, um, etc., etc., etc. And those kind of details are very personal and are very dangerous for people to be altering and changing just as they please. So all of these kind of offences carry a burden for the future. Um, as I've said, if it's happened with me, who else could it be happening with? And there's this issue of identity theft. There is also the you know financial theft, property theft, um, and the other more serious issue of spiritual theft. So I'm just wondering how are the authorities and how are the ombudsman and politicians ignoring these offences that have been perpetrated in modern day Ireland? And what does it say about this country? Because as a proud Irish lady, I've respect for my constitution, and I've respect for my heritage, and I've respect for the system of this country. And it's a sad sign at the times when people, collective or not, decide to just trample over a person's constitutional rights and trample into a person's life and trample into a person's property and home and dwellings and help themselves to what doesn't belong to them. So these are serious issues that aren't pertaining to popularity, but more so to principles that the constitution of this country were founded upon. So as a victim of these people that are trampling on the constitution of this country, I'm just wondering, what are the authorities prepared to do about this kind of a circumstance that they have addressed on their own website and yet that they have ignored in this community? Um, who is preventing the assistance that I have sought? Who is obstructing justice? Who is defaming my character and reputation? Who is helping them to themselves to my career earnings, my opportunities, etc., my wealth? Who is preventing me from accessing the medical care that I need? Um, so as this situation continues, I'm just going to have to keep uploading. There's continuous falsehoods being relayed, and there's threats in society that think that they're unethical means of attaining information and disrespecting my constitutional and human rights, amongst other things, is an easy gain and a cheap win. But in fact, such, you know, are with awful, awful burdens. Um, so basically, this is for the interest of diversity at Garda.ie and the Department of Justice in particular, because as I said, as a law-abiding citizen and as an adult, that has contributed very positively to society, thanks to the fellowship and recovery that helped me make my amends and helped me move on from the petty past. Um, I'm just wondering, as mature adults and professionals, how are the politicians and the Department of Justice ever going to try and amicably and sensibly and respectfully rectify very serious wrongdoings and very serious offences and very serious insults and injuries against a woman that has worked and earned and achieved without causing any wrongdoings against other citizens or this Constitution of Ireland either?